Bola Tinubu, a seasoned politician, assumed the presidency of Nigeria in May 2023. He inherited a nation grappling with economic challenges. Yet his campaign resonated with promises of a brighter future. Tinubu pledged economic growth, job creation, and prosperity for all Nigerians. His words ignited hope in the hearts of many, eager for a change in their economic fortunes. The expectations were high. Nigerians yearned for a leader who would steer the nation towards economic stability. Tinubu, with his political acumen and promises, seemed poised to deliver. The first few months of Tinubu's presidency painted a starkly different picture. Instead of the anticipated economic upswing, Nigeria found itself in a downward spiral. Inflation soared, reaching unprecedented levels. The cost of living skyrocketed, pushing basic necessities out of reach for ordinary citizens.
Food prices became a source of anxiety for households. The price of fuel, a crucial commodity, rose dramatically. Transportation costs surged, impacting businesses and commuters alike. The economic hardship was undeniable, leaving many Nigerians questioning the direction of the nation.
One of the most significant policy decisions made by the Tinubu administration was the removal of the fuel subsidy. This decision was not made lightly, as the fuel subsidy had been a long-standing policy in Nigeria, aimed at keeping fuel prices affordable for the average citizen. However, the subsidy had also been a significant drain on the national budget, costing the government billions of dollars annually. This move, long advocated by economists, aimed to reduce government spending and redirect funds to other sectors. Economists had argued that the subsidy was unsustainable in the long run, and that the funds could be better utilized in areas such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure development. The hope was that by removing the subsidy, the government could invest more in these critical areas, ultimately leading to a stronger and more diversified economy. However, the immediate impact was a sharp increase in the price of fuel. Overnight, fuel prices skyrocketed, causing widespread concern among the populace. Many Nigerians, who were already struggling with the high cost of living, found themselves facing even greater financial pressure.
This price hike had a ripple effect throughout the economy. As fuel prices rose, so did the cost of transportation, which in turn affected the prices of goods and services across the board. Vendors in local markets had to increase their prices to cover the higher transportation costs, leading to a general increase in the cost of living. Transportation costs soared, affecting the prices of goods and services. Public transportation, which many Nigerians rely on for their daily commute, became more expensive, putting additional strain on household budgets. The increased cost of transportation also affected businesses, which had to pay more to transport their goods, leading to higher prices for consumers. The cost of food, already high, climbed even further. Basic necessities such as rice, bread, and vegetables saw significant price increases, making it even more difficult for families to make ends meet. The rising food prices were particularly hard on low-income households, who spend a larger proportion of their income on food. The removal of the fuel subsidy, while intended to address long-term economic issues, exacerbated the immediate hardship faced by Nigerians. Protests erupted across the country as people voiced their frustration and anger over the rising cost of living. The government faced a difficult balancing act, trying to implement necessary economic reforms while also addressing the immediate needs of its citizens. The situation highlighted the complex and often painful trade-offs involved in economic policymaking.
Adding to the economic woes was the devaluation of the Naira, Nigeria's currency. This measure, intended to attract foreign investment, had the unintended consequence of making imports more expensive. Nigeria, heavily reliant on imported goods, felt the pinch.
The devaluation further fueled inflation. Imported goods, from electronics to machinery, became pricier. This impacted businesses and consumers alike, further eroding purchasing power. The devaluation, coupled with other economic challenges, painted a bleak picture for the Nigerian economy.
Section 5. Unemployment and Poverty. The Expanding Crisis. As the economic situation deteriorated, unemployment and poverty rates soared. The promises of job creation seemed distant as more Nigerians found themselves without a source of income.
The youth, already facing limited opportunities, were hit particularly hard. Poverty, a persistent challenge in Nigeria, deepened. Families struggled to put food on the table and afford basic necessities. The economic downturn pushed many into poverty, exacerbating existing inequalities and creating a breeding ground for social unrest.
Section 6. Government debt. A growing concern. In recent years, Nigeria has faced a mounting challenge that has caught the attention of both local and international observers. To fund its operations and ambitious projects, the Nigerian government has increasingly turned to borrowing. The strategy was seen as a way to stimulate economic growth and development. The Tinubu administration, in particular, has relied heavily on issuing bonds and securing loans from both domestic and international lenders. These funds were intended to finance various infrastructure projects and public services. While some level of debt is expected for governments, the rapid accumulation of debt in Nigeria has raised eyebrows. Historically, borrowing has been a tool for development, but the current trajectory is worrisome. Nigeria's debt burden grew at an alarming rate, far outpacing the growth of its economy. This has led to increasing concerns among economists and financial analysts about the country's ability to manage its debt. This raised concerns about the sustainability of the government's fiscal policies. Many experts have pointed out that without significant changes, the current path could lead to severe economic consequences.
Critics argued that the government's borrowing was unsustainable. They warned that the increasing debt levels could lead to a financial crisis, similar to those seen in other countries that have faced debt defaults, and risked plunging the nation into a debt crisis. The fear is that if Nigeria cannot manage its debt, it could face severe economic instability, affecting millions of citizens. The interest payments on the debt alone consumed a significant portion of government revenue. This means that a large chunk of the budget is allocated to servicing debt rather than investing in the country's future, leaving less for crucial sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The impact is felt across the nation, with underfunded schools, overcrowded hospitals, and deteriorating infrastructure becoming more common. As the government grapples with its debt, ordinary Nigerians face the brunt of the economic strain. Small businesses struggle to survive, and communities experience increasing hardship. The government is now under pressure to implement economic reforms and find sustainable solutions to manage its debt. The future of Nigeria's economy depends on the actions taken today. There is hope that with the right policies and prudent financial management, Nigeria can overcome this challenge and pave the way for a more stable and prosperous future.
Section 7. Public outcry, protests, and dissatisfaction. The economic hardship faced by Nigerians was met with growing discontent. Protests erupted in major cities, with citizens demanding action from the government. The rising cost of living, unemployment, and poverty fueled public anger and frustration.
The government's response to the protests was met with mixed reactions. While some acknowledged the need for dialogue and policy adjustments, others criticized the government for its handling of the situation. The public outcry highlighted the urgent need for effective measures to address the economic crisis.
Section 8. A looming crisis, long-term implications. As Nigeria grappled with these economic challenges, the nation found itself at a crossroads. The economic landscape was fraught with uncertainty, and the stakes were higher than ever. Concerns grew about the long-term implications. The everyday struggles of the Nigerian people were becoming more pronounced, and the future seemed increasingly uncertain. Critics argued that the Tinubu administration's policies were unsustainable. They pointed out that short-term fixes were not enough to address the deep-rooted issues plaguing the economy, and risked exacerbating existing problems. The healthcare system was under strain, farmers were struggling to make ends meet, and businesses were closing at an alarming rate. They pointed to the rising debt, inflation, and unemployment as warning signs of a looming crisis. The numbers were stark, and the reality on the ground was even more dire. Unemployment was rampant, with young people bearing the brunt of the economic downturn. Long queues at job centers were a common sight, and inflation was eroding the purchasing power of ordinary Nigerians.
The long-term implications of these economic challenges were far-reaching. The fabric of Nigerian society was being tested, and the resilience of its people was being pushed to the limit. They had the potential to undermine Nigeria's development, exacerbate poverty and inequality, and create social unrest. The gap between the rich and the poor was widening, and social tensions were simmering just below the surface. The question remained, could the Tinubu administration steer Nigeria out of this economic storm and deliver on its promises of prosperity? The road ahead was uncertain, but the hopes and dreams of millions of Nigerians hung in the balance.